Michael Saylor said this in a podcast about a potential Bitcoin killer.
And if you had a better monetary network, then all the smart money in the world, all the smart people with money would be using it. Well, if someone came along and launched something that was more popular with intelligent people, then I guess it wouldn't be working.
Now, what if there is something smarter and better and more efficient? I know for some people that this is a heated subject, so before you go and leave a bunch of mean comments, please at least watch the video till the end and try to understand what I'm trying to say. That's the deal between me and you. You're only allowed to leave a comment if you've watched the video till the end. So, let me introduce you to Kaspa. Kaspa has the same initial idea or vision as Bitcoin, to function as a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. So what's the difference, you might ask yourself? You see, the problem with Bitcoin is that the transactions can take up to several hours to complete and cost more than $100 in transaction fees just to send your transaction, which means that the Bitcoin network is far too slow and far too expensive to be used for everyday transactions. For example, no one would go and buy a coffee if they needed to pay $100 in transaction fees and stand there waiting 5 hours to show the cashier that the transaction actually has went through. Hence, the scalability part of Bitcoin is severely lacking. However, slow transactions and high fees aren't that bad in every aspect, and I'm gonna touch on that later on in the video and explain why, but this is where it gets interesting. At the end of 2021, a group of highly intelligent people set out to create a Nakamoto-like service that operates as fast as internet speeds allow. In other words, they set out to create a Bitcoin 2.0 that actually can be used for everyday transactions by a large amount of people. And this new Bitcoin 2.0 is called Kaspa. Now, it's easy to think that the founders of Kaspa are some new crypto kids that are new kids on the block trying to break their way into the crypto world, but if you thought that, you are very much wrong. Let's take Jonathan Sompolinski for example, the founder of Kaspa. He was a part of developing the Ghost protocol back in 2013, which was used by Ethereum, and Jonathan Sompolinski himself is also mentioned in Ethereum's white paper back at the early days as well. There are even some rumors being spread about Jonathan Sompolinski potentially being Satoshi Nakamoto, but what really sets Kaspa apart from Bitcoin, technically speaking? And to answer that question, you first need to understand how a normal traditional blockchain system works. So let's take Bitcoin for example. When you want to send some Bitcoin from your wallet to your friend's wallet, you initiate a transaction, and that transaction gets put in a block, and the block is filled with multiple other confirmed transactions, and once the block is filled, it gets placed on the blockchain, linking back to the previous block, creating a linear chain-like structure. And every one of these blocks on the Bitcoin blockchain gets added every 10 minutes or so. So Kaspa works in basically the same way. You initiate a transaction, the transaction gets put inside of a block with multiple other transactions, and then it gets placed on the BlockDAG. Not the blockchain, the BlockDAG. And DAG stands for Directed Acyclic Graph, which means that the blocks with transactions are not getting added in a linear chain. Instead, multiple blocks can be added to the BlockDAG simultaneously while still keeping the network secure. In contrast to the traditional blockchain, the Kaspa BlockDAG adds multiple blocks simultaneously, creating like a web-like structure. And this web-like structure allows Kaspa to add multiple blocks a second, allowing hundreds and potentially thousands of transactions to be completed within a second. As of now, it currently takes a second to process a transaction on the Kaspa network and 10 seconds to fully confirm the transaction. Keep in mind that the Kaspa BlockDAG is still utilizing proof of work, which is very important if you want to have a decentralized structure on your monetary system, or whatever you want to call it. Unlike other cryptocurrencies that have very high transactions per second, like Solana or some other cryptocurrency. They are proof of stake, which is not as decentralized and secure as proof of work. Now, Kaspa is currently running at 1 block per second. 10 blocks per second is going to be released in the up and coming quarters, and 100 blocks per second is also in the horizon. And I could delve much deeper into the technology, talking about the GhostDAG, the DAG Knight protocols, but to be frank with you, I'm not that much of a tech geek. Of course, I'm more of a tech geek than my grandma, but I'm not at that level when it comes to being a tech geek. So the essence with Kaspa is that it is basically the same as Bitcoin, but it can handle multiple of hundreds transactions per second and even thousands of transactions per second in the upcoming future, while only costing a couple of pennies, if even that, in transaction fees. So that means with Kaspa, you could actually use it to go buy yourself a coffee on your morning rush, because you don't need to stand there waiting half an hour to see that the transaction has gone through. You send your Kaspa over, it costs you a couple of pennies to send the transaction, and the cashier can see that the transaction is confirmed within a matter of seconds. Kaspa is literally everything what Bitcoin is, but better. It is decentralized and it is being secured by the miners and the steadily increasing hash rate, and it is revolutionary. The only thing that it doesn't have is the history and the legacy, which ultimately comes with time and patience. Now, in the podcast, Saylor goes on to say that the ever-rising transaction fees you pay when using the Bitcoin network is the price you pay to use a secure network. But here he's only talking about large amounts of money, failing to focus on the normal everyday transactions, which I think is interesting. But before I say more, I quickly just want to abrupt the video right here and tell you about this very nice hardware wallet that I got right here. It's a Tangem hardware wallet, which helps you store your cryptocurrencies safely. In my opinion, it's the most beginner-friendly crypto wallet out there. It's very affordable and it's also very good. You simply just scan it with your phone and you can access your wallet. You can sign transaction by scanning the card. So if you also want to get a Tangem wallet for yourself, don't forget to use the code Tashi to save 10% on your purchase. Now back to the video. So in regards to what Michael Saylor said in this podcast, I think that it's not unlikely to see that Bitcoin in the future will become like a playground for the big financial dudes with big wallets to keep their assets and store their value on the Bitcoin network, making Bitcoin like the ultimate digital gold. And for them, it makes sense to pay up to $100 and potentially $100,000 in transaction fees, depending on how it develops in the up and coming future. If they're sending a couple of millions or even billion of dollars in Bitcoin from one another, then the transaction fees make sense because they're paying for the secure network. Because to be honest, even how great Kaspa might be, it will never be deemed as secure as Bitcoin, because Bitcoin inevitably has the first mover advantage, and it will also most likely always be the biggest cryptocurrency to exist when it comes to market cap or perceived value. But I still believe that Kaspa has a part to play, because you still need a cryptocurrency that you can use to buy your coffee with, or that you can rent a car with, or that you perhaps can go and buy some shoes with, or yeah, really whatever. So that's where I think that Kaspa actually can step in. Now, of course, none of this is financial advice. I highly advise you to do your own research, your own due diligence to understand what you're getting yourself into. I think that we're standing in front of a big opportunity when it comes to Kaspa and Bitcoin. Just look at this chart right here. You see that Bitcoin is the small box up in the left corner, and it's approximately $1 trillion in market cap in this picture. And the whole picture basically represents all of the money in the world. You can see like bonds, money, like they're all full of money, but Bitcoin is still this tiny box. And seeing that Wall Street is now stepping into crypto and being more and more interested by Bitcoin, Bitcoin will most likely steal some more market share of that $900 trillion. And I mean, Kaspa itself, it really is revolutionary. It is the world's first BlockDAG. BlockDAG. It is the world's first cryptocurrency to truly solve the crypto blockchain trilemma, and it's only sitting at like $4 billion market cap, which is really next to nothing when you're talking about the financial world. So I'm not saying that you should throw every single dollar into Kaspa, but just imagine what it would look like if Kaspa could grab only a tenth of the current market cap of Bitcoin. So the current market cap of Bitcoin as of recording this video stands around $2 trillion, which means that if Kaspa were to only get a 10% market cap of the one that Bitcoin has, that means that it would have a market cap of $200 billion, which is roughly a 50x from where we're standing currently. And I mean, depending on how things develop in the up and coming future, in the up and coming 3, 4, 5, 10 years, I don't think it's unreasonable to see Kaspa there. But it also could be a flop, so keep that in mind. Bitcoin is Bitcoin. It has the first mover advantage, and it will most likely always be deemed as more secure and stable as any other cryptocurrency, which ultimately makes for a perfect digital gold. But no one buys coffee with gold.